All right, everybody. Um, I guess that I'm live on my live stream channel, and I'm just going to be streaming here, rambling about some things because, ugh, things are annoying today. Things are really really annoying, and the battle, the war is facing some setbacks, and yeah, it's a shame. And ultimately, this war that we're fighting is going to go on until 2020, the year 2020, at least. I mean, it's never really going to be over, but after 2020, things will start to change in terms of who's on whose side and who's doing what and who are the corrupt people and who has the money, who the big money is going to be placing their bets in, who's supposed to be the successor to Trump, or if somehow somebody manages to beat him in 2020 when he goes up for reelection, uh, who the big money is going to invest in. Are they going to invest in that person? Blah 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 blah. Things will change, but there are very very clear battle lines and tactics that have been drawn in the there's battle line in the sand, tactics that have been plotted by the corporatist people who are siding with the Democrats, the European Union, and using the philosophy and ideological framework of the left as their marketing strategy. Now, I don't believe for a moment that all that many of these people really, really want any sort of communism and uh, that kind of a thing. I don't really believe deep down that even that George Soros and everything wants that. Maybe they do. I'm not really sure, but I do believe that they want open borders. I think that they want to have these weird multinational banking and multinational corporations open so that they can kind of funnel migrants into various places, get them to vote how they want by providing them with things, stay in power, keep the whole racket going, and that's kind of what they want. And the current the way that they did that during Obama, that became wildly successful, as a PR marketing strategy, was identity politics, and then eventually this offer of socialism and communism has seemed to sort of been, I don't want to say replacing it, but becoming more and more filtered into the mix. They are realizing that that might be the effective strategy. And it seems to be fairly obviously the case that most of the big money people, like most of the big money corporate donors and corporations, are still banking, placing their bets in the left. Like the left is, you know, what would be the best way to say this? Um, I do believe that there was probably definitely a time in which the conservative, or even like the Christian traditionalist mentality was used to proliferate um, a lot of electoral politics that uh, that ultimately, those were just sort of like talking points for the politicians to keep the citizens voting the way that they wanted to be voting. And I do believe that Bill Clinton was a Christian, and I'm pretty sure I remember him like talking about his Christian beliefs openly, not a whole bunch, but he would occasionally mention it. I do believe, and he had that Southern good old boy thing about him, and I think that's one of the reasons why he won. And then George W. Bush, massively, just horribly incompetent president that, didn't really do anything. And he, had a whole team behind him that had basically kind of a fraudulent presidency of uh, global conquests that were, pretty obvious. And he similarly was very, very big on pushing the Christianity thing. And that was this sort of marketing strategy. But then everybody got sick of the Republicans and sick of Bush and sick of Christianity by the end of 2008. It was very, very clear that that ethos was no longer selling on the American voters. People did not want to blindly follow what their pastor was telling them, I don't believe anymore. So what they probably did, I think that they sort of did a test run. And this is just my little theory, but I've been thinking about the 2008 election. And I didn't really think about it all that much. Like, I was going through some very, very profoundly crazy personal times. Like, I was really using a lot of substances. So even though I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area, it was basically just like, oh yeah, there's this black guy running for president, I heard, and he might actually win. That was kind of the extent of it. And I, this is really embarrassing. I had supported Hillary Clinton in the primaries a bit because I had fond memories of the Clinton years, and that's about as far as it goes. And that's really embarrassing for me to admit now as somebody that is quite politically literate in comparison to the average person. But I was kind of like that. But I think about the 2018 election, and what I'm starting to realize is that Hillary Clinton ran against Obama, and it was this thing where they were I don't think Obama was insulting Hillary Clinton for being a woman. Like, I don't think that that was part of his campaign, right? But Hillary Clinton did include in her campaign at some point in some states, they were using a lot of racial epithets and trying to say racist things about Obama in her campaign. I've never really seen examples of this. Like, people refer to this, but I haven't actually seen examples of it. But it wouldn't really surprise me because, the Clintons are just scum. Like, they hate poor people, and the mass incarceration went up. That's when it really, really started during the Clinton administration. And sure, it was based on the war on drugs policies to a certain degree, but things got dramatically worse under Clinton, and they obviously didn't care. Like, they obviously had not a care in the world that such things were happening. And so I do believe that Hillary Clinton is actually demonstrably a horrible, horrible racist. Like, I don't think it's just that she said super predators. I think it's what she actually did and what was okay, what she was okay with. And but even still, I have to wonder if the Democratic Party was potentially maybe doing a test to see how racist the southern states and middle America, wherever they were actually peddling the racist campaign for Hillary Clinton. I wonder if they were just testing to see how racist the voters really were. And I suspect that by the end of the primaries, they knew perfectly well, because of the fact that that strategy didn't actually work and that Hillary Clinton didn't actually win, that even in the most supposedly racist parts of the United States, people by and large weren't really all that racist anymore. Like, people, it wasn't like you could just say, well, hey, I'm running against a black guy, don't vote for him. And people would be like, yeah, good point. I think that was no longer probably the case. And so, yes, they did this thing that on the surface was, horrendous racist thing to do, that, like, what type of scum would actually try to put something about the other guy's race in their campaign, especially against a minority or whatever. Um, like that just seems like such a lunatic of a move. You know, Hillary Clinton, she's been in politics for a really, really long time. You know, like they had been like by 2008, she had been a 16-year veteran of being in the White House herself. 16 years. And the Clinton administration, Bill Clinton, I remember those years. They were very, very identity politic oriented. Bill Clinton was on the Arsenio Hall show playing saxophone. Arsenio Hall was this black talk show host, and Bill Clinton went on there and played saxophone to try to get some votes, and it worked. So the idea that Hillary Clinton would be dumb enough to actually think that it was a good idea to be racist to Obama, if she really did do that, no, that's not what she was doing. I just can't actually believe it. I think it's a little bit more likely that because and I've heard this from very smart people, that Hillary Clinton never really thought she was going to win in 2008, and she didn't actually really campaign all that hard, supposedly. Now I don't really know. I honestly can't exactly say for certain. I don't have all the tangible evidence, but I've heard from some very smart people that that is the case. So I want to admit to what I don't know, but supposedly she wasn't actually trying to win, and I would say that the Democratic Party, you know, she was colluding with the Democratic Party to test the waters to find out if racism actually is a contributing factor in elections anymore, at least in terms of, you know, amongst the Democratic Party, like how much racism actually can sell amongst Democrats. And it turned out that Democrats firmly did not want to be racist, and that's why Obama beat Hillary Clinton despite being a no name in the primaries, right? So they learned at that moment in 2008 that identity politics sells, but not negative identity politics. What they learned was positive identity politics sells, that somebody's minority status would encourage racism to be would encourage racism towards that person, but it would be positive racism. It would be a positive affirmation that, yeah, you know, you're a minority. We shouldn't insult you based on your race. Let's give you a vote. Um, they started sort of learning that, and that has been the general ethos, because they kept saying that all these people were calling Obama a race, or all these people in the Republican Party were totally racist towards Obama, supposedly. I never really saw that. Like, I didn't pay attention to politics during most of Obama's presidency, I have to admit. But it's not like I wouldn't watch the news sometimes, or watch news clips sometimes, or people wouldn't share things on Facebook or whatever. And the thing is that there was never really actual examples of these Republicans saying these racist things. They just sort of said that they were doing it. And I don't know. That just sort of seemed to be what, you know, the marketing strategy became, you know, identity politics. And it worked really, really well. So that even when the multinational, or the, yeah, I think it's multinational banks went kaplunk in by the end of 2007, 2008, and we were in a financial crisis for a while, and then Obama actually bailed them out with American taxpayer dollars, and the left was actually mad at him. Like, leftists, it was Occupy protests were protesting Obama for doing that. Like, you have to remember that. Like, people in the radical left, when they first started taking to the streets and protesting early this decade, that was because they were mad at Obama. But they put Mitt Romney up against him, and he did horribly in the debates. I remember watching the Mitt Romney debates, and again, like, I was not paying attention to politics at that time, but I had once paid attention to politics. I kind of understood how they worked, but more than anything, I have a pretty good grasp of theater, and um, I can read people pretty well. I like to think, because that's what my background is in. Um, and I just, Obama was doing horribly in the debates. He was buckling. He cannot think on his feet at all, at all. He just came across like a kid who didn't know that there was a pop quiz on a certain day and he hadn't been studying, and he was floundering and he was defensive and like pausing for way too long and fumbling his words. He looked terrified, and I was like, oh no, this looks like a broken man. This looks like a man that didn't do what he thought that he was going to want to do while he was president, and doesn't know how to defend himself. But I didn't think I wanted a Republican to win personally. And then he just kind of won, even though it seemed like he lost all those debates. And I, it was very, very strange. But I think that the Democrats, they had to have been thinking to themselves, okay, identity politics works. We know that. Awesome. So they tried to do identity politics again with Hillary Clinton. And they also tried to basically take over the internet. But they thought that they thought that they had a better grip of control over the internet. So Hillary Clinton is she's an ideologue in the way that she is, I do believe, a feminist. Like, I do believe that she has it in her head. And I've said this numerous times, and people that are smart have disagreed with me, but I've just never found a compelling reason to not believe that this is the case. Hillary Clinton ultimately represented the corporatists. She was very, very fine in shaking hands with all the corporatists, right? And she was willing to just do whatever they kind of asked her to do at any given moment because she's a flip-flopper. But I do believe that she herself is an ideologue, and her ideology that she worships is feminism. And she is some sort of a sociopath type cluster B personality disorder, megalomaniacal character who, the feminist belief system. And I've been reading feminist theory texts. Like, I'm almost finished with this Bell Hooks book called The Will to Change Men, Love, and Masculinity. And it's basically the evangelical feminist's guide to converting males into feminism. That's basically what it is. And I believe that Hillary Clinton's motivation as a person, like, why is Hillary Clinton motivated to be Hillary Clinton? Like, why did she want to conquer the world? And I really, really, really think it's just because she's a woman, and she thinks in her head that her being a woman and being the first female president and being the first female that is the most powerful person in the world, that will lead to some great good. And that, it seems to be her motive. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. And I've come to that conclusion basically by way of process of elimination, because there's nothing else consistent with her. Like, there's no consistency in Hillary Clinton's character. Like, you could say, oh, she's just greedy. She just wants stuff. She's just a power hungry person. And like, that's the same kind of thing that they say about Trump. But with Hillary Clinton, it's like, she's been in politics so long and has been contradicting herself over and over and over, and then trying to climb to the top. And it's like, why would you do that? Like, why would you, like, never actually stand for anything but be there for so long just trying to climb to the top? Like, you have enough money that you probably could, I don't know, maybe there's something more to it, but I do think that she wanted to be president because of feminism. because she believes this, subvert the patriarchy and the world will be a better place myth. And so they tried to kind of, do that in 2016, and they thought it was going to work because they thought that the social media was on their side. They drastically, I mean, and sometimes I start to think that they knew that they were going to lose a little bit more than they did, but it is hard to say. Um, it's hard to say. Really, that much is hard to say. I don't know if the Democrats, and this is all speculation, anyway. But in my theory, in my theorization, this is me thinking out loud. I really do wonder if the Democrats were starting to realize that they would maybe lose. But I don't know, the way that they're acting now, like the insanity coming from the Democratic Party, the Maxine Waters stuff and the Antifa stuff, which, sorry, I don't think it's unfair to say that that's coming from the Democratic Party. It's the Democratic Party is the prime beneficiary of it. Like they're relentlessly just attacking the Republicans. And like, I'm sure if you were to ask a Antifa person what they think of Maxine Waters, they'd probably say that she's a strong black woman that don't take no shit and that they're proud of her. And she's a Democrat, and she's the most radical Democrat. And the Democrats get to like have Maxine Waters in the party and say that they don't agree with her tactics. And then they have her still doing that, and they still have Antifa, and they don't spend a very big time denouncing it. It's like they get to have this sort of good cop, bad cop. Like you get to have the nice Democrats who just are obnoxious on Facebook that you run into all the time, and then you have full-blown Antifa who makes people actually scared of speaking their mind on Facebook because they wait, I just muted myself. They're actually, people are actually scared of speaking their mind on Facebook because the moderate Democrat type people will freak out and call them, Nazis and stuff on Facebook. And then Antifa actually will beat people up for being accused of being Nazis. So there's this kind of like good cop, really bad cop relationship. And that does seem to be the case, that the Democrats are, flailing and are really, really desperate. And that is a very precarious situation. But ultimately, what it means is that the Democrats have to lose in 2018 because they're doing everything they got. Like I think that I think that the best way to look at it is that the people who are in the Democratic Party are just totally corrupt. The only reason that they're there is because they shook a lot of hands with a lot of rich donors and compromised themselves, and they thought that they were going to have long-standing careers as career politicians if they did that. And they promised the donors that they were going to win elections and get things done, and then they were going to cut corners for the donors' businesses, blah, 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 blah. Symbiosis, give relationship, pat each other, scratch each other on the back. Rich donors, Democratic Party. It used to kind of be like that with the Republicans and the rich donors, but not so much anymore. A lot of them shifted over to the Democratic side, and Hillary Clinton bragged about doing that to Goldman Sachs. Like that is one of the things that came out on WikiLeaks, like in transcripts. So Hillary Clinton was very proud of getting Wall Street to be putting money in the pockets of the Democrats. And then the Democrats lose. They failed to deliver in 2016. And they are going to fight to the bitter end to get their power back. Because the thing is, they undoubtedly told the donors something to the effect of, okay, I know you gave us however many billions of dollars, or you know, like 1.3 documented $1 billion to the Hillary Clinton campaign, and all of the other local campaigns and whatever. I know you gave us all this money, and I know that we lost these elections like really, really hard, but I've changed. I'll do better. I'll do better in 2018. I'll do better in 2020. I swear. I swear. Well, I'm a changed party. We've changed. So obviously, a number of the donors are still thinking that they should have their money on the Democrats, and they are going to keep up this strategy of like, you know, and I've read what the strategy is. Like I've read the media strategy, and it's coordinated. Like Ed, it's really long to explain what this document is, but I've looked at something along these lines, and it seemed pretty legit. It seems like I was shown it right after the 2016 election by somebody who got his hands on it. And it was basically like what the Democratic playbook was going to be, what the Democrats and the left at large, the Western left, was going to do as a media collective and as a social media collective. And it seemed legit at the time. Like it seemed like what the Democrats were already kind of doing and the kind of thing that they would continue to do. But honestly, as it's been about close to 2 years, maybe about a year and a half since I saw that, it's really just come true more and more. Like the things that were on that they said that they were going to be doing for Trump's first term has come true. And it's basically just undermine his presidency at every conceivable opportunity and have a major social media pushback against the right wing and basically major social media pushback against the people who don't like the Democrats. So they were going to be training people to basically come after people on social media. And they're shutting down Alex Jones. Who knows who else they're going to shut down? They're probably going to shut down all sorts of people. They're thinking to themselves that, honestly, I don't want to say what they're thinking to themselves because it's irrational. It is just completely irrational. It's the same type of irrational behavior that comes from somebody who has really bad drug and alcohol problems, who ends up, hitting their boyfriend or girlfriend. In this case, I'm gonna use a crazy female who has a tendency. Let's say she's on Adderall, like she gets prescribed Adderall, so she's always jumpy, and she's also on some sort of antidepressant, so she's always really revved up, and she has a tendency to drink a lot, also. And she'll drink a few glasses of wine, and then occasionally she'll start a fight with her boyfriend out of nowhere, and then he will say that he'll yell a little bit, and she'll literally punch him in the face like multiple times, and then she won't remember it the next day, and then she'll freak out and be mad at him, and then apologize a bunch and make all these promises about how it's like never going to happen again, and it's not normal, it must be the medications and blah 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 blah, and she's going to work on taking less Adderall, but she has to do it next week because she has a big project that she's working on for work, and blah 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 and blah 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 blah. All these excuses. Well, I feel like that's kind of what the Democratic Party is acting like now. Like they're like, okay, well, that was just Alex Jones and the trolls and Russia, and that's why we lost the election. So don't, keep giving us money, keep giving us money. You have to. And that's really what it seems like they're doing to me. Like that's just what it looks like. And so they're trying really, really hard to use the 2016 election as what looks to be to me like they're putting up Cortez as their guinea pig to see if they stand a chance in 2020. and they're going to see how much support they can garner for Cortez, and they're probably going to run somebody like her in 2020. And it'll probably be somebody that you never heard of, like Obama, some young woman of color that is going to run for office, and she's going to be bright-eyed, and she's going to have socialist promises that they know that the Democrats are really stupid and everything. Like, they're not that smart, and they're pretty economically incompetent, at least in terms of stimulating the national economy. They have not ever really had much of a track record of doing that, as far as I know. I might be wrong, but the Democrats, they're not so stupid as to think that this like democratic socialist type politicking might actually work. Like, they know that there's not the money to pay for free university for everybody, and like, they know that these people do actually do politics professionally. They're selling people on a lie. It's the same lie that said that George W. Bush was a good Christian, and that the good Christian thing to do was to invade Iraq, and because Saddam Hussein maybe had weapons of mass destruction. Like, anybody who's actually a Christian can probably tell you that that wouldn't have been what Christ wanted. um but it's just it's just the marketing is really how they're doing it. So they're going to be doing that, and they're trying to first see how well it works in 2018, and they're going to use that guinea pig, that laboratory monkey. Oh, that almost sounds like I'm being racist. No, I'm not referring to Cortez as a laboratory monkey. Just the test subject being Cortez. They're going to use that test as the sort of the information to draw the blueprint for their plan of attack in 2020. And they're going to keep it up. Like, their tactics, like, whether she wins or loses, she's almost certainly going to win. I'm pretty positive of it. I'm pretty positive that and this is just my guess, but the way that the press has been around it, like, they're trying to claim that this that the Democrat guy is not wanting to give up his seat, and they're making a really big deal about that, and they're trying to say it's like Jezebel, the worst of the worst. I mean, not the worst of the worst, because there is everyday feminism, but the second worst of the worst feminist rags on the internet. Jezebel published a article talking about how I think his name is Dan, the incumbent of the seat that Cortez is trying to usurp. Supposedly, she is being challenged by him, according to Jezebel, but he's denying it. Like, he's saying, no, you won, you can have it. And they're trying to, like, make a big deal about how he's not willing to give up his seat. And I really think that that's just media hype. I don't think that it's even true. I don't think that he probably is fine with her having. I think that he's taken one for the team to try to rebrand the party, and they're trying to sort of pretend that maybe he's contending it, and that's just to garner more attention to her candidacy, because her candidacy is test marketing, I think, for the Democrats in 2020. They want to see how well Cortez does, and then in 2020, they're going to know if that type of branding works. Young females, like, basically intersectional feminism meets Bernie Sanders. There you go, with a young face. There you go. That's what I think it is, because that's just what it looks like. So how do we stop them? And keep in mind, this is the 2018 elections are really, really important for people like myself who live in far leftist urban meccas. And the reason why they are important is because, well, I don't think it's unlikely that the Republicans do their little gerrymandering things and try to, get extra votes and blah 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 in their places. Sure, but we know the Democrats do that. Like even Obama actually admitted that the Democrats commit election fraud. I think when he was first running in 2008, he admitted that the Democrats do that kind of thing too. And the Democrats will make it so that people can vote. Sorry, that's not. They will garner votes for themselves, like extra votes for themselves, and ensure that there are more Democratic representatives in the state elections and that type of a thing, and that'll make it easier for them to win federal elections. So what do you do? Like if you're in a swing state, or even if you're in a far leftist state, it is worth paying attention to these elections and making sure that the intersectional feminists who are those are going to be the people that are the corporatist feminists. They have this weird branding of saying that they're anti-establishment, but these are the people that are going to be the most likely to be corporatists. And how do you stop them? Because you need to stop them. You absolutely do. Well, I was listening to a speaker on Philosophy Insights. I'm going to bring up her exact name. You guys should watch her. It was actually because it was a really good little speech, and she was a oh crap, Philos. She's an actual conservative. And largely my advice. Oh, her name is Liz Wheeler, Lizwheeler, and she talks about Alexandria Cortez and democratic socialism. And she has a very good little tidbit to sort of say, which is that you should be able to demolish ideas like democratic socialism in less than 5 minutes, sometimes less than a minute, or less than 30 seconds if you have to. And I think that that's really worth doing. I have a problem with that. I have a tendency to go on and on and on, make sure that I'm taking everything apart with a fine-tooth comb so that I'm thorough. But it is good to just come up with a really, really short way of saying things. Like, I came up with a great way of debunking why gay men need feminism. And because the way that feminists will try to evangelize gay men into feminism is almost always by saying that all homophobia is rooted in misogyny. That's been the typical talking point since the 1970s, and it has never gone away. And so you say that when someone says that to you, all homophobia is rooted in misogyny, and you say, oh yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you've noticed that a lot of gay men are really misogynistic. Like some gay men are even more misogynistic than straight men, wouldn't you say? Because I've certainly met some really misogynistic gay men, certainly. And they might say, yeah, I guess that's true, yeah. And I'd be like, okay, so you just said that all homophobia is rooted in misogyny. And then you also said that some gay men are even more misogynistic than straight men. Well, then, if those two things are true, then that would mean that some gay men are even more homophobic than straight men. Obviously, that's not true. So that's a good way to debunk the talking point that all homophobia is rooted in misogyny. It's a very easy thing that you can do very, very quickly. And I came up with that. Keep that one in mind. But there's I don't necessarily have super great ones for democratic socialism. I don't know if I have developed that, the concept of like why democratic socialism is evil in 30 seconds or whatever. Like, I just don't know if I have it. I don't agree with socialism though. Yeah, it turns out. It turns out. I do agree with social programs, but I don't agree. I agree with hand ups. I don't agree with handouts. More and more is uh, how it is. But I do have a few other little tidbits of, um, oh, okay. So somebody tells you they're an intersectional feminist. Uh, Call them a racist. Just call them a racist. Tell them that they're a racist, and then you go on and you say, well, yeah, because an intersectional feminist is it's fundamentally within the framework of the ideology that black men have male privilege and black men face more unemployment, higher dropout rates, like literally every negative statistic that you could possibly ever think of applies dramatically more to black men than black women. And for in the mind of an intersectional, um, it's hard to get them to realize that they're a sexist. But when you call them a racist and then point to those statistics, um, they have no comeback. Like they'll block you on social media and they'll get furious, but they have no way of debunking that because it's just true. Like to exhibit such utter callousness for the black male experience that you're gonna sit there telling him he has male privilege, like, oh, by the way, here's your consolation prize, even though you literally are the most statistically like not necessarily disadvantaged is the right word, but um statistically likely population to be suffering for various different circumstantial life hardships. Like you have the worst end of the deal in anybody. But by the way, you're still privileged for being male because we're feminists. That's a really racist thing to say. It's just really, really racist. You know, like I mean, there is no male privilege. By the way, that's just not true. Uh, if society was normal and treated people equally, then there would be a number of advantages that men have and a number of disadvantages that men have, blah, 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 blah. Sure, depending upon the context. But the way that the West is set up, the way that liberal democracies that we associate as the West are set up at the moment, they dramatically favor females systemically. And that's just the facts of the matter. There's no good way of arguing anything else. So but you can't, that's an entire worldview shaping thing. What you can do is you can call them racist for discounting the black male experience because you can easily point them towards the statistics that show that black men are suffering in comparison to black women. And the thing is about the black male suffering, it's funny because intersectionality, um the way that intersectional feminism uh, prescribes intersectionality, they do it just dramatically wrong. Like intersectionality by itself, I find it not particularly helpful in the way that it just overgeneralizes people to the point where I just don't think that that's how we should view the world all that much. But the biggest thing that's wrong with intersectional feminism is simply that it's feminism. And they like feminism is racist. And but okay, I need to back myself up here because I could go on for a while about that. I guess the best way of putting it is simply that even by the given standards that intersectional feminists would preach, like the things that they would say, even by the standard parameters that they defined, their presupposition that black men have male privilege is simply untrue. It is demonstrably untrue by every tangible metric. It is so easy to point out, and even more so than white males or Asian males having quote unquote male privilege. It's really, really easy to point, like, because black men are suffering even more than white men statistically. And so it's pretty easy to get them to pay attention to that because they have been conditioned to care about racism. So I find myself when I'm, in my little blue pill arguments with people, um, one of the best, most effective strategies is to, in arguing against feminism and intersectional feminism and stuff, is to point out, is to frame it as if they are violating one of their own rules, which is the fact that they are racist, which they are. And it is wrong that they're doing that. I think it's very wrong that they're being racist in that way. And they're getting something wrong when they claim to speak about this thing that they allegedly care about. So that's a good tactic. I've been shit posting a lot on social media, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I have been having a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that has made me distracted, and so I don't have a whole lot of patience. But I've also just noticed that, and maybe this is bad and it's going to get me in trouble, but I came to the realization that a good strategy in dealing with, fully blue pill Democrats, SJW, intersectional feminists, people that are Democrats until they die mentality type, and they actually bother to, like, they have Trump derangement syndrome, and they sit there on the internet actually bothering to engage in arguments, and they never know what they're talking about. Like, they never know anything besides what they read on Vox or something. Like, they're basically not even one of Ezra Klein's minions, but like Ezra Klein's minions army. Like, if you were to look at Infinity War, all of those like weird creatures with the four arms, these are those people. Like, they're not even Thanos's minions; they're Thanos's minions army, and um, they just don't know anything about anything, and it's really, really easy to kind of shit post them and just call them, like, I've made a video about this like just yesterday or the day before, that you should call them racist when they're being racist, like, as I mentioned, because they are. It's easy to demonstrate. But one of the things that I've realized is you can also take it over the top a little bit and sound like they're sounding, and so you can start calling them a white supremacist, which there is arguments to be made for, and you can take it there, because there's a lot of evidence of this now. So, like, let's say you get into an argument with somebody who, you know, supports, he doesn't support Antifa, but he basically does. You know, he doesn't, he would say that he's not Antifa himself, but he does think that the Proud Boys and Patriot Prayer are alt-right, and they have ties to the alt-right, according to this guy, because, he read Vox sometimes. And so this, if you're dealing with a guy like that, you can just start calling him a racist and a white supremacist, and he'll be like, what are you talking about? And he'll be like, well, Patriot Prayer and the Proud Boys are firmly anti-racist. They are pro-American. They love America, and they love all people who are in America. Anybody can join them. You can see countless pieces of video evidence of their rallies where there's multiple people of multiple different races, all sorts of colors that are within their ranks. And then there's Antifa people who are literally covering their faces, all dressed in the same color, and you can't actually even really see their skin color minus their little white hands poking out, and they're all white, attacking them and throwing racial epithets at the people, like calling people Uncle Toms and Coons, and even recently there was I think it might have been a black guy, but called a police officer the N-word and saying that he was the N-word for the white man, and that kind of a thing. And so when you bring up this discussion, like we have this very, very tangible evidence of like basically Antifa is acting like the KKK. Like they're harassing they're harassing the people that are like the civil rights groups and being like flagrantly racist to them, like actually attacking them based on their skin color, hiding their face, all dressed in the same color, being almost all white. Like if you ever see uh racial minority that's Antifa, it really does look like they're a token, you know? But it's not actually very hard to find racial minorities who are in the Proud Boys and in Patriot Prayer. Like and you see more and more of them. And so it's always like the end, like you see a bunch of white guys calling like there's like 5 or 6 black guys in the Proud Boys, and then there's a group of 20 white guys calling the 5 or 6 guys tokens. And it's like, oh yeah, I bet you wish you had a token. So you can get in these like discussions with somebody about that and just call them a racist, call them a white supremacist, and go all out. And if don't expect to necessarily win the argument, but it will shut them, like it will make them, it will take the wind out of their sails. Like when I say win the argument, you don't have to win the argument. Like you've already won the argument. Like that's not even a thing. Like we won the argument a long time ago. Now it's just the people who are like this are cutting their losses. You know, Ezra Klein of Vox wants to stay in business. He wants to get checks from the big money Democrats and the big business that they do business with. But here's the thing: the big money corporations that give money to the Democrats, they're giving the Democrats one last chance, and these Democrats know that their careers are riding on all of this stuff, and they also know that they don't have any arguments. So their only strategy is smearing people, lying about people, limiting information, blah 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 blah, and they are just going to lie. They're going to keep it up as long as they can because they're hoping that maybe it works, because that's the only thing that they have. Period. So when they're little trained alien animals with the 4 arms start attacking on social media, all you got to do is you start getting on their skin, under their skin, and calling them racists and white supremacists and stuff, and they will call you a Nazi, and then you're calling them a white supremacist, and then they shut down. They don't know what to do, and it works. It stops them in their tracks because they haven't dealt with that. Because you call them a white supremacist, and then you say why. You qualify your statements and say, no, because you are saying that the Proud Boys are white supremacists, and I can show you video footage of Proud Boys with many, many racial minorities in their ranks being attacked by Antifa, who is calling them racial slurs, and they won't even show their faces doing it like it's the KKK. Who do you think is a white supremacist? And you're siding with them. You're a white supremacist. And like, I don't know, like you're kind of shit posting when you do that. Kind of are. Like it's a little bit over the top and facetious, but like I guess when you're fighting aliens, you got to get your hands dirty or something. I don't know. I hope it doesn't come back to haunt me later. Like I hope some kind of shit posty thing that I did like somehow doesn't like surface, and then I have to try to explain myself. Because that would be annoying. But hopefully the nature of my bizarre philosophical justifications for why I do everything I do will make it so that I won't ever be in that position where I have to like justify some old comment on Facebook from, 5 years ago or whatever. Because maybe the people who would be taking me to task won't want to do that in 5 years' time. So how else do we make sure. Oh yeah, this is a big one. If you live in a far leftist area like myself, um, don't don't talk about being a Republican if you are. I mean, if you are an actual Republican, I'm not going to tell you not to be a Republican, but I'm not a Republican. And the reason that I'm not a Republican is not because I wouldn't technically prefer the Republicans to win to the Democrats, which, I mean, that's just simply kind of a damage control, lesser of two evils thing to me at this point. Because the Republicans or the Democrats are just pure evil. There's nothing good about them at the moment. But I don't really think that there's necessarily all that many great things about the Republicans either. And it's like, if the Trump administration isn't corrupt now, give them time, sort of a thing. And but more than anything, I just don't feel like I know enough about the Republican Party because I was not raised Republican. I was not raised with their talking points and their arguments for like why they support the things that they do and why, like, who are the real heroes of the Republican Party and who are the people within the party that the other people don't like. Like, I just don't understand that stuff very well. So it would be just this huge, ridiculous, disingenuous leap for me to pretend that I was Republican and that I supported Republicans because I'm not. I'm not. But I do think that the Democrats need to lose and need to lose in 2018 and in 2020 because of the wretched state of their party. Like, they can't get their power back because they still have, they might get public opinion and then we're all doomed. So I really am going to continue to be a big advocate for third party voting within my far leftist city area. And I think that, just telling Democrats that they don't have to vote for Democrats is a good psychological strategy to try to tell someone, hey, the Democrats are the evil party, therefore voting for the lesser of two evils should be voting for the Republican. Like, I just think that that's weird. Like, and if I had become a Republican, then maybe it would sort of sound plausible to me, but I haven't. Um, so I think that this strategy of just getting people to not vote for Democrats and vote either third party or, I don't know, not vote, maybe even, that is where the sort of the battleground lies. Like, or and also to maybe even just try to get them to not vote for the intersectional feminists. Like, because those are the people that are ultimately going to lead to the corporatists, because that's where the big money marketing is going into. Like, you have to keep in mind, the best barometer for knowing where the big money is going is who gets the most marketing. Like, who are the politicians that you see the most ads for? Like, Cortez has all these ads floating around Facebook, like on, like, Dot Mike is making ads for there. And, Dot Mike is a well-funded corporatist propaganda company. Like, they're getting money directly from somewhere. They're not anything but corporate, little corporate viral clips that they pay for them to go viral. And they had a local candidate for mayor in Seattle named Nikita Oliver, and she almost actually got on the ticket. She was third place, and she was really furious that she didn't win. Like, she was counting all the ballots again and crap like that. And she wasn't endorsed by the local, like, hipster paper, which is called The Stranger, but there was advertisements all over it for her. And the community, and she wasn't even running with a Democratic Party. She was running with a party called the People's Party, and blah 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 blah. But, like, there was ads for her candidacy all over the Seattle Strangers blog. So obviously the big money was actually putting their money into her. And I think it's this sort of like rebranding of like, um, the Democratic Party is sort of currently where the big money's bets are going. They're sort of moving even further left, but it's like it's just like actually what the big money kind of wants, and just encourage people to say no to that stuff. Like they don't have to vote for it. Um, I don't know if you're going to get them to jump to the Republican side of things. I haven't, but um, really, really adamantly say no. Like tell these people that you've seen footage of Antifa beating people up. You've seen footage of Antifa being racist. Show them it. And just keep engaged with this stuff and call them a racist and and these people will start to have doubts eventually. I really think that they probably will. Um, take the wind out of their sails by calling them, disarming them, and talk about how feminism is homophobic and self-contradictory, and it does nothing for gay men because they contradict themselves in the very premise when they talk about why gay men need feminism. They say, well, all homophobia is rooted in misogyny, and some gay men are even more homophobic than straight men, which would mean that uh, some straight, some gay men are even more some gay men are even more homophobic than straight men. Yeah, that's what I said. So yeah, that's my little ramble for today. Now I'm gonna look at the chat, see if anybody is typing to me. All right, anybody got anything to say? State of Bacon. State of Bacon could come on if he wants to talk for a little bit. Want to come? Um, yeah, I do think that there was a lot of people. State of Bacon said that the Democrats are basically doing the same thing the Republicans did under Obama, which is a bunch of reading on social media and saying how bad Trump is the next dictator. Now, um, um, I definitely think that the Republicans were being all crazy. I remember hearing of Republicans saying that Obama was the Antichrist, and they said he was a communist and all sorts of stuff like that was true. Like people did say that. What I don't remember is people saying anything particularly racist about Obama. Like I never saw any evidence of that. I just didn't see that evidence. Maybe it was there. I just didn't see it. Um, oh, Bookmark says her campaign was the one who firstly came up with the whole Obama birther drama. I didn't know that. That would be cool if somebody pointed me in the direction of Clinton's birther claim towards Obama because I actually did not know that. That's interesting. Mind blown. Well, I guess that little theory that I had before kind of see. I guess I need to see more evidence of like what were the racist things that Hillary Clinton like actually said. Like I'm just imagining these like campaign posters in the South being all like, "Don't vote for the jigaboo," "Don't vote for the porch monkey," or something. It's like, is that what they said? I don't know. Um. All right. Well, I think that I've streamed enough, and I got out what I wanted to say. So I'm going to end this. But thanks everybody for all you very few people that watch this. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, bye.